I remember the sound first, not the shouting, not the engines, just the pounding on the door. Heavy, repetitive, angry. It was one of those moments that made time feel strange, like the air thickened and even the smallest sound carried weight. My sister, Angela, sat frozen in her wheelchair, her hands trembling slightly as the knock echoed again. Open up. HOA compliance inspection. And then, seconds later, this is the police. That was the moment I knew. The HOA had gone too far. It was a Saturday morning, sunny, quiet. The kind of day my sister looked forward to because it meant she could sit outside, listen to the wind, and tend her little flower bed near the porch. Angela was a disabled veteran. She served 8 years in the Army before a roadside blast left her paralyzed from the waist down. But you'd never know it from the way she lived. She refused to be seen as broken. She had bought a small house in a gated community. Clean lawns, neat hedges, strict rules. At first, it seemed peaceful. But peace, I've learned, can have conditions when you don't look like everyone else. The trouble started with a flag. A simple one. A custom banner that said, "Home of the brave, veteran lives here." To her, it was pride. To the HOA, it was unsanctioned signage. They sent her a fine. Then another. Then a letter threatening further action. Angela laughed it off at first. "They can't bully me out of flying pride," she told me. But I knew that tone, the edge in her voice, the one she used to hide the sting. Weeks went by. She'd call me at night, sometimes laughing, sometimes quiet. "They took pictures of my porch again," she said once. Another time, "They said my wheelchair ramp isn't regulation approved." They weren't enforcing rules. They were hunting for reasons. By the time she received a final notice, she was tired. Not physically, just emotionally worn. I told her to hang tight, that I'd come over the next day. But that day came sooner, because they sent the cops before I could. When the police arrived, Angela was alone. She thought it was another inspection, until she saw the uniforms. One officer was polite, but distant. The other, sharp, impatient. Eyes scanning her ramp, her porch, her wheels. He said, "Ma'am, we had complaints that you've been hostile with HOA staff." Angela blinked. "Hostile? I've barely spoken to them." The officer shrugged. "They said you refused compliance. We're here to verify your property isn't violating community standards." She stared, stunned. "You're here for flowers and flag?" The other officer stepped closer. "We'll be brief. Just cooperate." She did. She always did. But something inside her cracked when one of them asked if she really lived alone. That's when she called me, her voice shaking. "Mike," she whispered. "They sent the police. They're here now." I was 40 minutes away. But my brothers, my twin brothers, Marcus and Mason, were closer. And when I told them what was happening, they didn't hesitate. They just said, "Send the address." By the time I got there, it was chaos. 2 squad cars, a small crowd of neighbors, and the HOA president, a woman named Judah Crane, standing proudly on the sidewalk like she owned the world. Angela sat quietly on her porch. Tears dried on her cheeks, her wheelchair between her and the officers. The tension was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. And then, in the distance, the rumble of an engine. A black SUV slowed to a stop. 2 men stepped out. Broad shoulders. Sharp posture. Matching suits. Their movements were controlled. Precise. Marcus and Mason. Both U.S. Navy SEALs. Both decorated. Both my little brothers. They didn't say a word as they approached the officers. One of the cops straightened his posture immediately. "Sir, this is a private matter." Marcus cut him off, calm but firm. "This is my sister's home. You're trespassing without a warrant. Step back." The HOA president scoffed. "We called them because your sister refuses to comply with neighborhood rules." Mason's eyes met hers, cold, steady. "Neighborhood rules don't override federal law, especially the ADA." Judith blinked. "The ADA?" Marcus pulled a folded paper from his jacket. "Americans with Disabilities Act. You might want to read it before you send officers to intimidate a disabled veteran." The crowd was silent. Even the officers looked uneasy. Angela tried to speak, but Marcus knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said softly. "They're done now." Judith fumbled her clipboard. "I was just trying to uphold the community standards." Mason replied, "By violating federal rights, by filing false police reports." Judith's voice cracked. "We didn't mean." "But you did," Marcus interrupted. "You meant to intimidate her. You meant to remind her she doesn't belong. But you forgot. She already fought for this country. She earned every square inch of this home." A few neighbors clapped quietly. Others shifted, ashamed. The cops backed down, realizing they'd walked into something far bigger than a violation. They apologized, saying they were misled. Judith left before anyone could say another word. But it didn't end there. Marcus filed a formal complaint with the city. Mason contacted a lawyer who specialized in ADA cases. Within a month, the HOA found itself under investigation. Turns out, Angela wasn't the first disabled homeowner they'd harassed, just the first to fight back. Emails surfaced. HOA board members mocking her, saying she was using the veteran card. Another suggesting she could move somewhere less visible. It was disgusting, but it was also their downfall. The city fined the HOA heavily. Judith resigned in disgrace. And Angela? She became an advocate, speaking at town halls, helping other disabled residents know their rights. When the case finally went to court, the HOA's lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. Marcus stood and testified. Mason followed. When Angela took the stand, the room fell silent. She spoke with steady grace. "I serve this country. I've learned that courage isn't always on the battlefield. Sometimes it's standing up when they tell you to sit down." When the verdict came, the HOA was found guilty of harassment and ADA violations. They were ordered to issue a public apology and pay restitution. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the respect, the acknowledgement, the justice. Months later, the ramp that once caused so much trouble was rebuilt, stronger, wider, with a bronze plaque at the base. For Angela, home of the brave, the neighbors who once looked away now waved. And every Sunday when my brothers visited, they'd sit on that porch, laughing, reminiscing, and reminding us all that family stands stronger than fear. Because in the end, this wasn't just about an HOA or a flag or a fine. It was about dignity, about justice, and about knowing when they knock on your door trying to take your peace, sometimes you open it with strength they never saw coming.